welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I am your host, Scott Ramp. I'm here to usher you in through the weekend of Friday, December 4th. We are going to have an interesting weekend because Missoula is doing the Parade of Lights, or otherwise known as the Drive-Through of Lights. They're going to be doing this off of Campus Drive on Saturday, starting at 5 p.m. and going to about 8 p.m. They'll have their lights on. You get to drive right through. I'm going to try to bring the MCAT drone over there and try to get some beautiful shots of the area, weather permitted, and we'll learn more about that a little bit later. I have dubbing stuff today. I got a pre-critic. I got a special guest from the City Council talking about a fundraiser for West Riverside Park. So we'll get all that and more, but let's jump into the news. And as much as I've tried to avoid it, it's all about COVID. Well, one of the biggest news things is that UK has become the first country in the world to pass emergency use for the Pfizer vaccine, which has been proven to be not only 90% effective, but 95% effective, with the short-term side effects that had to do with redness, arm pains, and also some fever chills within the first day or two. But so far, no long-term side effects have been put in place, and the United States is still looking for FDA approval for that emergency use. But the news is constantly changing, so it might even change by the time this airs Friday morning on the 4th. UK officials claim that they have been looking into this vaccine since June, and says that the vaccine process has not cut corners. Also, the vaccine's shelf life can last 15 days after it is taken out of intense cold storage. But CDC Director Robert Redfield warns that the toughest time is just ahead of us. Just Thursday, the national record of new cases jumped up to 100,000 confirmed new cases in the United States. COVID-19 numbers are soaring at new record heights, with communities that have been doing well for so long are now dealing with record numbers of their own, like Missoula. Missoula County has reported over 4,800 ongoing cases with a daily infection rate of 51 people per 100,000, which for them, the Missoula City County Health Department wants to have it at a 25 per 100,000 new cases a day. In Hamilton, the KLYQ News report, Black Hat has closed their doors because of a positive case of COVID-19 with one of their employees. Once clean and tests are with the close contacts, they'll plan to reopen. But while some businesses struggle, other businesses have closed for the winter. Clyde Coffee is one of those businesses that decided to close down for the bulk of winter. Governor Bullock passed an executive order to close bars and casinos and restaurants earlier to have a 50% capacity also. Revive Missoula was a coalition here in the city of Missoula with over 70 businesses in Missoula, and to get signed off by city and county government to kind of loosen some of the state restrictions that have been put into place, to say that they've been doing really well, making sure there's social distancing and making sure that people are comfortable and are safe going into a lot of the restaurants, stores, and so forth. And so far, the city county health department have been very, I guess I'm trying to find the word. They've been reluctant, but also on board with looser restrictions in the city of Missoula when it comes to businesses, because a lot of COVID spread has been done through community spread, which means some people who expand their social circles, hang out with people they haven't seen in a while. That kind of stuff seems to be stemming from a lot of that growth in the COVID-19 here in the city and county of Missoula. Community spread has been a term used in the last couple weeks to describe the kinds of spreads in Missoula, most of which saw Missoula's largest daily jump on November 14th, which saw 1,622 new cases in Montana. Although many businesses are dealing with the federal government's slow wheels when it comes to a new relief package, Bullock has reduced COVID relief for government officials to help local workers. The money would impact local COVID responses by local health officials who have hired contact tracers. The big thing with that is that with less money going to the government, it'll be a lot harder for a lot of health officials to basically trace all the close contacts that have been put into place for some of the people who have tested positive. No matter how you look at through the news for something different, it all always comes back to COVID. And I promise that the rest of my show will not directly about COVID until we give you the most recent update of the City County Health Department by Cindy Farr or whoever later on in the show after my City Council report, which in my City Council report, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening with the Affordable Housing Trust with the committee of the whole. And without further ado, I have a guest from the City Council, Heidi West. Hello, Heidi. So you're here to talk about Project Westside Park, a Christmas holiday fundraiser. Could you elaborate a little bit more how you came up with this and how you went about doing this Christmas season?
Yeah, well, I actually was thinking of the fact that we don't get to travel and hang out with family, and maybe we have family members that don't really need a gift. You know, they have everything they need, but we'd like to send them something little to let them know we care about them, and also give a meaningful gift in their honor. And so I know that when I'm looking for gifts like that, I've donated to different nonprofits for to a specific cause, and then sent a card letting someone know that I've done that, and that's my gift to them for the holiday season. And so I just thought it would be great to do the same thing for the West Side Park, and let people, gift, if you will, a donation to that park to someone they care about. And so we are running a special holiday fundraiser that started on the 1st and will go through the 15th, where you can donate in honor of someone else. And the minimum donation is $30 for a single card. And so I actually have the original of the image that's on the card here.
Oh.
I don't know if you can see it.
Can you bring it up just a little bit more?
Just a little bit more?
Yeah. That looks really nice.
And so this is...
Who's do we know the artist?
So I actually made this.
Oh, great.
When I came up with it, I didn't have quite enough turnaround time to try and find a local artist. I had a couple I had my hopes on, but it was just too short of a turnaround time to recruit someone and then figure out the details and figure out how to pay them, because I think artists should be compensated for their work. So I came up with this image. It's a paper cut of, I'll just hold it up again, 2 kids playing in the park, and there's
it's Missoula, so you gotta have a dog.
Right, so you have to have a dog, kids playing in the snow, and bright, colorful houses in the background. And so we have a limited edition of cards that are being printed. So we have 100 of them available. So it's $30 if you're just, wanting to send one card to someone in their honor, up to 4. And once you, if you want to send multiple cards, if you want to send 4 or 5, then the minimum donation cost drops to $25 per card.
Nice.
Yeah, and so that will cover the cost of actually putting, mailing the card, printing it, and then about $25 per card goes directly to the park.
Nice. So this is donation just for the West Side Park, am I right?
Yeah, so it gets the NMCDC, North Missoula Community Development Corporation, is a nonprofit sponsor on this effort. And so the donation will actually go through the NMCDC, but you can donate at projectwestsidepark.com. So it has its own website. It's super easy to track on my end. And everything goes to this park. So, yeah, and I should say it's a really big community effort. So, Missoula City Parks and Recreation is involved, of course. Missoula County Public Schools is involved. Trees for Missoula is also a very active partner and has done a really amazing job, and actually produced a little video fundraiser, or a video about this effort, and just describing the importance of parks and play to the health and well-being of children, and the community overall. Parks are important for grown-ups too. So
the money that is going into this park, what are some of the plans for the park as the money comes in?
So phase 1 is actually under construction right now. So this is a really big redevelopment of West Side Park. It's attached to Lowell School. and it's in the West Side neighborhood. And Lowell, serves pretty much all of the North Side, all of the West Side, and our neighborhood has seen a lot of growth. We have a lot of new buildings going in. We have a lot of affordable housing units coming online in the next couple of years. So we're going to see a lot more kids at Lowell. We're going to see a lot more families needing the park. And if you've been by there recently, you can tell that the existing playground is, it's been well loved. It's falling apart. Slides have been removed. Like different features have been, there's Sylvan, have been removed, and it's just in need of reinvestment and some love. And right now, the preschool playground is under construction, so there will actually be a separate area for preschoolers to play, so that they can play even when Lowell school's in session. And then there's going to be a separate school-age playground, and it has a lot of improvements from the existing structure. So it's going to be more accessible, so kids of all abilities can play on this playground together. And it'll also have SEPTED features, so that teachers can see where the kids are, parents can see the kids. There aren't as many nooks and crannies to hide.
That's the worst part about it.
Did you hear my kid?
Yes.
He likes the hiding features. But it has, it's about 40% bigger than the playground that's there now. And you can, there's a lot of really cool climbing features, and a really amazing slide. I don't know. It's a really cool park.
Oh yeah, there's even remember thinking back to a lot of my old playgrounds back in the day. Those death traps, from what I remember. Get scars, get bruises, and all that stuff. Just that was like a badge of honor when you were a kid back in those days, for sure. Because I broke my wrist, not necessarily going down the slide, but actually just jumping off the slide and doing a flip. And so it was and it was very not cool at all. Cool way to break your wrist.
Yeah, I think our standards have changed a lot for playgrounds and parks. Yeah, it's a really exciting project.
Well, so let's tell the people where they can donate and where they can find out more information about this once again.
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is just to go to projectwestsidepark.com. It's there's information about it right on the homepage. If you click Give the Gift of Play, there's a link on the main page, and you can just go directly to the donation page, which also has instructions on how to get me the information I need to send someone a card. And if you want to customize it and add a special note, just let me know, and you can always email me directly. That's just also available on the website, but it's adelheid.west@gmail.com.
Awesome.
So.
Well, thanks, Heidi. I really appreciate it for coming on.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
So that was Heidi West, and here's a video that kind of expands upon the West Riverside Park in association with the nonprofit Trees for Missoula. So check this out, and when I come back, we're going to talk about some movies.
Play is absolutely essential. Play is essential for students to learn. And in school, we require our students to collaborate because collaboration has a huge effect size on learning. And if you can't play, you can't collaborate. So a playground is just as essential as books to an elementary school. And a safe playground is absolutely one of the most important things that I can guarantee a family and students as a principal.
Play creates the building blocks to society in a young age. It's where kids learn social skills. It's where they learn critical problem solving. It's where they learn how to get along with each other. It's where they learn crisis management. It all happens on a playground. And so these spaces that facilitate that type of socio and emotional learning within kids are vital to create the next generation of community members that know how to interact with each other and solve problems. That's all happens at play.
Important for kids to have safe places to play other than just their house and their yard, to help build independence and autonomy and give them an opportunity to socialize and play with kids other than just their immediate neighbors or even friends who they would invite over to their house.
The right built environment can foster those skills at a greater level than anything before. You know, and it can be as fundamental as just like an open space in a field, or as something as amazing as a play structure where kids can use their imagination and engage in active play that's not facilitated by anything else or anyone else but them and their peers.
So there are numerous studies that show after students come in from recess that their academic achievement increases. It's just an essential part also for developing their gross motor skills, building their endurance, and many things that lead to a healthy lifestyle happen on the playground.
Parks and playgrounds are very important for the north side, west side, because we have a very high number of really people that are low income, generational poverty. So that means they've been in poverty for 30 years or more.
Because of the socioeconomic diversity of this neighborhood, free, open, accessible places to celebrate and be as a family and play as a child as a safe place is even more vital.
My older son is on the spectrum, and so for him, something that he really developed going to Lowell was learning a lot of social skills and how to interact with others. Seeing him be able to do that on the playground and really utilize those skills that his team had, worked so hard with him to teach him those skills was really just, like hits you in the heart.
The existing Westside Park playground was constructed in 1998. And it's a really unique structure in that it was built by the neighborhood, by a group of volunteers that lived here. They did all the fundraising, and they actually put in their blood, sweat, and tears to build this playground.
And what we're dealing with is an old playground. We really are.
So the life expectancy of this playground is about 20 years, and we've exceeded that. And it's a mostly wood structure, and so if you think about wood in the Montana climate, it's not going to last forever, and it's starting to degrade, and so that's why it's in need of replacement.
We love Lowell Park, and I love the idea that there's going to be a new, beautiful, wonderful park for my family to play in and for all of our friends.
So the new playground is going to consist of modern play equipment. The life expectancy is more like 30 years, and so it's a really good investment and a good value. And the new playground will have 5 different play zones. And so each zone is unique in the sense that it offers different types of play experiences for the kids. And so one of the playground zones is called Lowell Mountain. And so we're going to use rubberized safety surfacing to create topography in the playground. And just the topography itself actually creates kind of a play feature. It's a place for kids to run up and down and tumble down the hill. But on top of that, we're going to put a giant tower on top of the mountain, and we'll have a big slide that comes all the way down from the top down to the base of the mountain. So kids will get the sense that they're on top of the world and they can slide all the way down.
This neighborhood is really a neighborhood that uses parks. And so a lot of the kids in our neighborhood don't necessarily do camps or do a lot of other out-of-neighborhood activities. So this park is really an anchor always for our neighborhood and all the kids here.
From Ron Howard comes a family that's gripping with the loss of a loved one, while we focus on the protagonist looking to get out of their redneck family and town to pursue their dreams of not having to be near them. I don't know, they usually kind of like throw in like some kind of like, oh, this is a job that makes them want to go to the city, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, this movie's called Hillbilly Eulogy. Ron Howard and Amy, man, I'm blanking. Anyways, actors are in this movie, dive into the Appalachian Mountains because hillbillies only exist there. I get it because there's hills. There's drug use, there is traditions, and overall a town that seems to stay the same even though you swear you changed. But let's forget all that and enjoy a drama that is a slice of life that will make you think, cool, I mean, family's very important. I gotta know where I come from so I can know how to be better myself in the future. Very cathartic kind of stuff. These people are people too, never really thought about it, blah, 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 so on and so on, etc., etc. Moving on, this next movie is more about exactly the same. Family. So a migrant worker basically has a kid in America while he's in America and leaves his native-born Mexican son back at home. Years later, the Mexican son finds out that his dad is dying, and this is when he finds out that he has a half-brother, hence the name Half Brothers. Trying to be a comedy in the vein of maybe Step Brothers or whatever, we see a straight-laced Mexican businessman coming up to America and going on a journey with his half-brother, who is an entitled turd, kind of hippie-esque. I don't know, he's very granola-esque, I don't know. Very chill, steals a goat in the scene, I guess, and then other things, kind of shenanigans happen while he has to deal with his half-brother, and maybe they form a bond. It's basically the Odd Couple for another generation, but since they're related, they're kind of forced to take this journey together, because most normal people wouldn't be around people who annoy them unless they are related to them. Alright, speaking of, okay, there's a thing, it's all about family. Hey, it's Christmas. Don't judge. The Croods 2, as if humans and dinosaurs coexist, let's not get into that. We'll avoid that. Actually, we jump into a world where a family of Neanderthals tried to scrape by with a little help from their cute animal pals. And also we're introduced to a modern family who live in like tree houses and maybe have like a stick elevator. I don't know, there's a lot of different things. But I cannot really say what the first movie was about because I guess they were there and then they went to somewhere else and then things happened. I don't know, it's weird. It's like, oh, the land is going to cave in on itself. There's earthquakes and disasters. You have to escape. And that's kind of what happened. Okay. So I suppose this next installment, Croods 2, has to do with community and how two worlds can become one family. Huh. I guess I get that reference to the Phil Collins song, Two Worlds, One Family. Trust your heart. Oh, okay, never mind. I don't want to get pulled off of YouTube. Not that my picture's perfect. Okay, so I'm assuming, they're going to have some modern twists with the caveman era, and it's going to be like, oh, selfies, cool, blah, blah, blah. This is what I call a selfie. What is it? It's where you rub poop on your face. Ha ha, laughter. Anyways, hashtags, whatever, Croods 2. Alright, so that concludes your pre-critic. I didn't have a video game to talk about because they were talking about a Dragon Quest, and it was just like a re-release of a game that was like definitive edition, so you pay $60 more for a couple skins, as they call it. Anyways, without further ado, here is the newest pre-critic, and it follows Misbehaving Husbands. Listen, we have two beautiful, independent people here who happen to share a life sometimes. Sure, some people may call it a marriage contract, but is it quite necessary for people to actually abide by that contract? Because there's that moral obligation when it comes to marriage, after all. And who's to say who has more to lose? The loveless marriage, or I don't think that's appropriate here. My darling daughter, how are you today? Not so well? Well, that's what happens. Well, sometimes people have good days, and sometimes people have bad days. That's enough of that. One might say, happy wife, happy life,
and it works.
Well, it works for me.
And only you?
Oh no, of course not. Happy has been. Happy fun can? Well, I can't think of anything that rhymes.
And yet we find ourselves at an impasse between you two. So my happiness means nothing to anybody? Stomp my feet, put my foot down, point my finger, and just everything will be okay? Well, yeah.
Oh.
Well, luckily for you, in the 40s, men's life expectancy is down really low. I mean, I'm not as sure it's associated with poor health, retirement. I'm retired. Do you think I'm going to die anytime now? Don't you talk to him like that. He's trying to help me with my stuff. Well, there always seems to be a common theme between retirement and the tomb. Are you saying that my father-in-law might die? Okay, let's not get carried away. Let me just sit down. I'm going to go talk to your father-in-law for a second here. Oh, fine. The real men are speaking. Oh, let me just have my platform for a second at least. Ever since you came here, you've been sassing me like crazy. I don't need that kind of sass from people. My father-in-law gives it to me. My mama gives it to me. My wife gives it to me. Everyone gives me sass, no matter where I go. And frankly, I am sick and I'm tired of this. Now get out of my house or go wherever. Get some ice cream. I'm gonna just go and touch things. Duck, duck, duck. Duck. Oh, goose. Well, I'll sit down. Does he usually have tantrums like this?
Maybe?
Well, I think your husband suffers from restless arm syndrome.
Well, that sounds right. After all, you did say syndrome after it. I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go powder my nose.
Am I still in trouble?
Everybody, welcome back. It's time for City Council. They're talking about the land use and planning, and this is kind of a formality, a continuation of the 4th and Roland Street. So if you guys don't remember this, just a little throwback information is that this property came under a lot of controversy by the city of Missoula and residents of the former locations. The locations were approximately 4 old school brick buildings that are over 100 years old, and a lot of speculation is just like you're building new high-end apartments that are going to be way too costly. And so the city at that point decided to basically have the property that's owned kind of like through a right-of-way by the city, and been like, hey, if we give you this extra space, will you build your unit complex a little bit bigger to accommodate low-income housing? So that was the only way that they were able to leverage that kind of affordable housing, because otherwise they would have made a smaller kind of unit complex, and then they would have had high-end condos and high-end apartments for anybody. And it is a prime set of real estate. It's near downtown, across the bridge, just on the trail, the Milwaukee Trail as well. And yeah, there's just a lot of things. And university neighborhoods have always been very expensive just in general. And so land use and housing, the main point of this meeting was to formalize and understand between the city and the developer. Montana James with Housing and Community Development talks more about this.
And this developer agreement enables the city to really test out an incentive structure using the right-of-way vacation in return for permanent affordability for these 7 homes. The Community Development Division will use administrative policies and procedures, best practices, and staff expertise to build out this incentives program using the lessons from this project. Additionally, it's important to the housing policy and its ultimate goal of improving housing affordability in Missoula to create new home ownership opportunities for Missoulians making below 120% of area median income. This project includes a significant number of permanently affordable homeownership opportunities in a Missoula neighborhood that trends as one of the most expensive, therefore creating new home options and improving access to community resources and neighborhood assets for those families.
So here's Cole Berquist, architect. He talks about how many affordable housing units will be available, and this is what he had to say.
You know, we're getting pretty far along in our architecture and engineering stage, so there's not really a whole lot of room to change things anymore. So it's looking like we're going to end up with the 7 affordable housing units, permanently affordable housing units that Erin showed in her spreadsheet in the presentation, or if we decide to do, a few less rentals, I think it would come down to 5 less rentals, then that would make it, the ratios would work out, so that would be 8 affordable housing units. And
so far, the planning and development are already in place, and a lot of this was a formality moving forward with the city of Missoula and the developer with the architect talking as well. There's really not much more to say about this property in terms of just like what they're going to do moving forward. A couple of these brick buildings are historic buildings, and so far I've heard some chat. I haven't heard any chatter about potentially keeping these buildings or restoring these buildings and just moving them somewhere else. I haven't heard any efforts with that. It has gotten approval by the Historic Preservation Committee in terms of moving forward with the plans to build on the site. So moving on, that's as much as I can say because that's what happened in the meeting. So moving on, we're going right into the committee of the whole, and it's more about affordable housing. But this one is talking about the stories about how some Missoulians have had a difficult time staying in Missoula and finding places to live. So this is part of the Affordable Housing Trust, and they're working on building a committee of citizens in Missoula, of renters and homeowners as well, to help people determine like exactly what they need to do or what's happening in Missoula that a lot of times is making it difficult to earn a living and also stay in Missoula. So as a result, people are losing their jobs, have been losing their jobs over the last year. Kia Peterson with Invest Health talks about sustaining housing that some folks may be at risk for eviction. This is what she had to say.
I will say that the data is really startling, even for all of you and all of us who are seeing the day-to-day impacts of housing pressure in our community. The data is startling. And the first time the Invest Health team presented this publicly, we really focused primarily on the data. We think the data is very important. But we realized that presenting this data outside of the context of what people's experience is day to day on the ground, and outside of the context of what can we as a local community do to respond, really fell flat. It felt just very despairing. And so I think today what we wanted to do was share the data with you, but also have some ground that in really what's happening for residents with some resident stories, and then have Carissa from the Missoula Home Coalition share some perspective on how this connects to existing and future policy.
Our next quote is that you're going to hear a lot of DRR, which stands for Displacement Risk Ratio. And that's the thing that what I'm about to show you is from Lavelle Means. And she's with housing, and she talks about how Missoula compares to other cities in the nation. And this is what she had to say.
For some perspective on the countywide DRR, the average countywide DRR in Missoula compared to other cities stands out. The research team pointed out that this is one of the highest DRRs they have seen in a couple of years conducting these analyses.
The biggest risk associated with this displacement risk ratio had to do with the amount of wages being pretty much stagnant over the last 8 years from 2010 to 2008, while soaring housing prices have gone up like crazy. Part of these risks are associated with rising housing costs with no competing wages. Another issue is that if housing prices drops, many investments are divested from the community as a result. So balance is important. You can't just have housing go way down and then there's less development, so there's less houses. So in a way, it's almost impossible for the demand to go, or the pricing to go too far down without the demand. So Kia Peterson talks about the data in terms of which housing from 2010 to 2018, the median house price went from $158,000 to $235,000 on average.
I think we often hear everywhere in the country people are facing housing issues. These are big issues, they're complex, and while that is true, I think what this data shows us is that what we're experiencing in Missoula is startling even in comparison to what we're seeing nationally. Both the numbers that we saw in comparison to other cities, and the fact that the impacts are citywide. When we asked for this research to be done, part of what we hoped is that we would find some specific targeted places or areas that we could work on to focus our limited resources and to leverage those to the best impact. And I think what we all have seen loud and clear is that's not what we're faced with. We're faced with a community that is really fully is broadly impacted.
Kia also mentions that the last 2 years, which have seen more inflation in the housing market in Missoula, have affected these rates. Just in the last 2 years, it's crazy. And not to mention, there's a lot of people moving to smaller towns, and a lot of people who are able to have those high-paying jobs have noticed that they don't necessarily need to go to the office or go to sites to do a lot of their jobs. I know even my friend personally, I'm not going to mention my name, but he works at a software engineer company. He used to go to the office, but they basically determined that they would save a lot more money if people just work from home. People would be more productive, and people have been proven to be more productive in these unprecedented times. So as a result, he's moving back to Missoula and still working basically from Wisconsin for the Wisconsin company. So, speaking of some of the folks here in Missoula, I'm going to show you some of the stories about a renter, a young renter, trying to figure out how the struggles within finding a new rental in post-COVID Missoula. Here is Natalie Stockman.
We were looking for a new place based on like poor living conditions and like inadequate housing and just unresponsiveness from our landlord. Like not adequate heat. I lived in a basement, and it just was getting overcrowded with all the also just like during COVID, thinking about spreading out a little bit more. We were looking for like a 3-bedroom apartment. It was like really arduous task to be looking, and took a lot out of me and my roommates. We probably applied to like upwards of 20 places. Some of them, probably 15 of them, never even getting a reply. We looked at 3 houses in our neighborhood with high hopes that we would get those ones. And we definitely did not. Like I was hoping that we were like, we all have stable jobs and like probably the most stable jobs that we've ever had. And so like we were really hopeful that we would get some, and we didn't qualify for any of them, or for whatever reason didn't get them, which was pretty disappointing. Just feeling like trapped, like you had to come up, like a lot of people were saying that you had to come in with like a cash deposit, which like wasn't realistic for us. We applied to 2 property management places. The application fees were at least $40 each for each person, just like kind of stacking on these costs while like all of our like income was pretty insecure at that time, during COVID specifically.
This is one of many issues. The rental rate in Missoula is at the lowest it's ever been. There's constant applications. Many people are kind of stuck in the homes that they're stuck in, with the added risk of potentially losing their job and then losing their housing. So that's part of what this is about, is basically keeping people in their homes through this affordable housing trust. Let's see. Ethan Sky Eagle, a small business owner in Missoula who's been living here for 13 years, who's been renting the home he originally was wanting to buy. But things change. Here's Ethan Sky Eagle.
This month will be the second time in those 13 years that we would have to move our family because the house is getting sold that we're renting. I have 3 children, 2, 4, and 12 right now. And this story of this year is pretty indicative of many people in this town. Small business owners are also struggling with housing situations right now, and I'm trying to represent them and tell them my story. May of this year, we got offered the house that we were living in, and we were extremely excited. We started putting some money towards a down payment, saving. And we weren't able to, we finally were able to meet that savings and about 3 months later, and pre-qualified for a mortgage. And we were just this ecstatic of the idea of owning a home in the climate right now and having stability for our family. So we revisited the conversation with our landlords in August of 2020, 3 months later, and they had decided not to move forward with the sale. And then 2 weeks, I want to say maybe up to a month later, they did decide to put it back on the market for $175,000 more than they offered us. And it was pretty disheartening, lots of anger, sadness. Our realtor had gotten involved, and now our relationships with our landlord has shifted. It used to be super amicable. We've been here for 2.5 years, and now all communication is through this realtor, and it seems cold.
Missoula is becoming quite the buyer's market, and a lot of times people want to buy here in the city of Missoula, so much so that a lot of the prices have gone up. Like in the last comment that I showed you, 100,000 plus boost in a house, and it's very difficult for a lot of people to stay in town, including this next person that I got. Her name is Tina, and she used to live in Missoula but was displaced to Great Falls as a result. And now she's on a waiting list for affordable housing, which in some Missoulians' anecdotal case has 2 to 4 5 year wait for these renting vouchers. So this is what Tina had to say.
And it shouldn't have to be that our plan is to wait for our name to reach the top of a list in order for us to afford to live in my home community, a place where I spent 45 years. I attended Hawthorne School. I graduated from Big Sky. I earned 3 degrees from the University of Montana. I remember when Reserve Street ended at 3rd Street and they built a bridge that went to nowhere. I was in Missoula before Missoula was Missoula. Our family is one of only thousands of people who are facing displacement due solely to the rising cost of housing in Missoula. And we are counting on you, our representatives, to accept the responsibility of taking the action where you can to make this an affordable place for us. And here also to say thank you is 2 of my girls. This is Paris and this is baby Tay. Thank you.
During her statement to the committee, the whole meeting, she also senses that she has challenges with her granddaughter who is special needs, and she's 21 years of age. And she talks about how Missoula, she was able to find a good footing with a lot of the resources here within the city of Missoula, but unfortunately had to uproot her whole family and move over to Great Falls, and is now going with new struggles associated with raising a special needs kid. So Christina Trillo, sorry if I mispronounce it, I'm terrible with names, Missoula Home Coalition and Homeward talks about the tone in which the city of Missoula should look to.
This displacement risk ratio study illustrates yet another layer of urgency around the issue of housing in Missoula for all of our neighborhoods. As we see this data and hear these stories and witness what is happening in our community, we're all asking the same version of the question, what can we do? This group has come together with some things that we think are most critical and we would like to see a shared commitment to. We want to see more community engagement. We would like to see more tools to do this work and urgency and accountability to get this accomplished. There's a lot of work ahead of us as a community. And in that work, we need to stay committed to ensuring that people who are living these experiences are engaged in defining and implementing the solutions. We want to thank you for the implementation of the Housing Trust Fund. We look forward to the creation of the Citizen Oversight Committee. And one of the areas that we see a need for more commitment to meaningful public engagement is in city land disposition. Given that housing affordability is such a clear shared community need, we want that oversight committee to have a clear voice and decision-making role in future city land disposition. As we look for more tools to do this work, there are a couple of aspects of the housing policy that should be pushed further than was envisioned 2 years ago. I hope it's clear, and I'm sure you all have seen this from your constituents, that the situation has changed since that housing policy was implemented in the last 2 years, and the urgency is even greater than before. We think it's time to revisit inclusionary zoning, and we would like to see the city put funding into a study on what mandatory and incentivized inclusionary zoning approaches could be successful in Missoula.
So overall, this new committee for the Affordable Housing Trust will be moving forward with the assurance that the money put aside that goes towards keeping Missoulians in Missoula. For more information, you can go to ci.missoula.mt.us. You can find out more about this meeting, more about the comments, and more how they kind of talk a little bit more about this as well. You can get involved with the committee as part of this Affordable Housing Trust. They're looking for nonprofits, renters, property owners, and different walks of life to give insight on how they can move forward with this as well. So I just wanted to thank you guys for joining my city council report. That pretty much wraps it up for my show. It is the virtual First Friday today. I might be able to show you a couple videos here and there, but I'm not going to be able to show you the full program as it's been coming in slowly. So the virtual First Friday is a program put into place that provides kind of a walk-through gallery tour of a lot of those art museums that would normally have it from 5 to 8 p.m. every first Friday of the month. So we have a good representation of art in the moment. It's going to premiere on MCAT's Facebook and YouTube page at 5 p.m. on the dot. So you guys can watch it on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page. The first Friday for December 2020, their virtual tour. I'm going to show you a little bit about that after I wrap up my show, but that's kind of going on with that. What I promised to talk a little bit more about is that the Zach is also doing a live stream this weekend. I'll be making every Saturday this month, except for this Saturday during New Year's Eve and Christmas. So for the next 3 Saturdays, MCAT will be live streaming for the Zootown Arts Community Center for various bands, concerts, and various entertainment things. The money that is raised through donations goes towards the band and also to the venue. So it's a 70-30 split. 30% of the money goes to the venue and 70% goes to the bands. And it is a good way to get in contact with the Zach if you're interested in, and if you have a band and your guys are desperate to try to earn some income as well. I've heard some chatter as well that Letter B, a band here in Missoula locally, is going to be performing at Draftworks. They're going to try to do a social distancing thing where they'll be on a patio playing out to people as well. So there's some of that going on there as well. One of my former co-workers, his dad is Tom Catmull, and he has been doing a lot of Facebook live concerts as well from his living room, so you guys can check that out as well. There's always something going on, but that's just kind of like some of the things that are happening as well. In terms of the library, right now the library is still waiting on final approval to be able to open. One of the things the library has had me doing is creating a video for a virtual tour. And so far the other day I was flying the MCAT drone around to get a nice video shot of the library, just to kind of give you a scope of it, and then interior shot. Everyone's seeing the outside of the building. I've gotten a lot of great interior shots of the building that I'll be able to show once the video is complete. I'll be interviewing a couple of the staff and the other organizations that are represented within the library, which has to do with Spectrum, MCAT, which is us, and Families First Learning Lab. So I'm kind of rambling right now, so I'm just going to end the show as soon as possible so I can show as much of the a tease for the virtual First Friday. So without further ado, I want to thank you guys for joining me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. It is the Parade of Lights, or the Drive-Through of Lights. Go through Campus Drive from 5 to 8 p.m. and you can enjoy some of the Parade of Lights from the safety of your own car. So there you go. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.